Welcome to section 1.5. This is the fifth session of the ISACA CISA exam prep series. In this session, we'll cover Audit Project Management. We'll answer several questions. How do you run an audit like a project? What are audit objectives and how do the phases flow? What is an audit program and why do work papers matter? And how do fraud awareness and Agile fit in? Why does this matter beyond the exam? Because an audit is a project with a deadline and a budget. Imagine you're handed a review of a logistics platform. You have 3 weeks and 2 analysts. Without a plan, the scope drifts and the deadline slips. Good project discipline keeps the work on track. And it lets you prove the value you deliver. So how do you run an audit like a project? It comes down to 4 moves. First, plan the engagement around its specific risk. Second, build the plan across a timeline. Map the tasks and make realistic time estimates. Mind the availability of the people you'll audit. Third, execute the tasks against that plan. Fourth, monitor progress as you go. Compare actual work to the plan. Manage challenges early and stay in scope and budget. What exactly are audit objectives? They are the specific goals the audit must achieve. Don't confuse them with control objectives. A control objective describes how a control should work. An audit objective is what your audit sets out to confirm. One audit usually carries several objectives. What do these objectives focus on? Mostly confirming that controls exist and work. Controls that minimize business risk. They cover legal compliance and the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. Here's a skill you must master: translating broad goals into specific technology objectives. Say a financial goal is posting transactions correctly. In a systems audit, you extend it. You confirm the editing checks catch coding errors. Errors that would corrupt those postings. A core purpose is to find the key controls. Then decide which ones to test for compliance. How does an audit flow through its phases? There are 3. Planning, then fieldwork, then reporting. Let's walk each one. What happens in the planning phase? You determine the subject to be audited. You define the objective and set the scope. A clear scope shows what skills and resources you'll need. Then you perform pre-audit planning. You run a risk assessment to finalise that scope. You interview the auditee and check regulatory needs. Finally, you determine the procedures and tools for gathering data. You build test scripts and the criteria to judge them. What happens during fieldwork and documentation? First, you acquire the data. Set up a secure way to collect evidence. An advance request list helps you gather it. Second, you test the controls. Use interviews, observation, and inspection. Sometimes you sample a subset of a large population. Picture checking a sample of servers for anti-malware. Third, you discover and validate issues. Issues are deviations from what you expected. They become the basis for your recommendations. Fourth, you document the results in the work papers. What happens in reporting and follow-up? First, gather the reporting requirements. Second, draft the report. Leadership reviews it before the auditee does. The auditee responds with planned actions. Third, issue the final report. Retain it and present it to the oversight function. Fourth, follow up on the remediation progress. What is an audit program? It's an ordered list of procedures to carry out the audit. You shape it around each assignment's scope and goal. Why develop one? It formally documents your procedures and their order. It creates a repeatable recipe others can reuse. It records whether you'll use compliance or substantive testing. And it meets the accepted standards for the planning phase. What do the general procedures include? Recording your understanding of the subject. Building a risk assessment, then a plan and schedule. Doing a preliminary review of the area. Verifying the controls meet their objectives. Running compliance and substantive tests. Then reporting and following up. What skills help you build a good program? Knowing the enterprise and its industry well enough to spot risk. A solid grasp of the technology and how it connects to business risk. Basic risk assessment know-how. And command of testing methods, things like audit software, flowcharting, and reperformance. Why do work papers matter so much? Every plan, test, and finding belongs in the work papers. Think of them as the bridge between objectives and report. They give traceability for everything you did. You should be able to trace from objective to report and back. What must you protect about them? Their integrity, because they back up your results. They often hold sensitive information. Information that a malicious actor could exploit. So apply the same security you'd assess elsewhere. And set retention and destruction rules by audit type. What is your role around fraud? First, know who owns it. Management is responsible for controls that deter and detect fraud, but controls never eliminate fraud completely. They can fail through exploited weaknesses or collusion. So what do? Exercise due professional care throughout. Stay alert to chances for fraud to slip in. Know the indicators and the ways fraud gets perpetrated. Watch for overridden controls in the environment. What if you spot signs of fraud? After careful evaluation, flag the need for investigation. Communicate it to the appropriate authorities. For a major fraud, brief the audit committee promptly. And know any legal duties to report it. What is Agile Auditing? It borrows ideas from Agile software development. It values interactions, collaboration, and responding to change. Traditional audits use rigid, sequential phases. Agile blurs the line between planning and fieldwork. How does that help in practice? Tasks run in parallel instead of in strict order. The auditee can prepare data while you finalize steps. You can analyze early data while meetings are still being scheduled. That removes major bottlenecks. What are the benefits? Planning shrinks from months to weeks or days. The phases combine into one streamlined engagement. Customers join the daily stand-up and shape the work. The scope flexes as new information appears. You give real-time assurance as you find issues. And you revisit the plan every quarter, not once a year. Does Agile clash with the standards? No, it complements them. Closer collaboration still reflects your independence. You keep your objectivity and professional skepticism. You still exercise due care and own the final call. The sprint retrospective even supports quality assurance. So let's bring it together. Run the audit as a project. Plan, build, execute, and monitor. Translate broad goals into specific technology objectives. Move through planning, fieldwork, and reporting. Lean on a strong audit program and clean work papers. Stay alert to fraud and use Agile to move faster. Master this, and your audits land on time and on point. The MCQs covering all the topics and concepts from this session are available on RooCloud.com. Practice the chapter-specific MCQs before moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or feedback, post a comment below or email us. I will see you in the next session.